My beloved child, there are days when you wake up with a hollow in your chest, as though something invisible has left you and you cannot name it. You beg me to do something unmistakable, a radiant sign, a miracle big enough to erase every doubt. So you can say to yourself, yes, he is still here. You want to see the sea split, mountains move, prison doors burst open. You want an explosive moment strong enough to silence the noise inside you. But my beloved child, while you wait for such things, how many times have you thought you were about to break and yet you still remained standing? Thought you were about to drown and yet you still breathed? Thought you were about to give up and yet you still had enough strength to whisper a small prayer? Where do you think that came from? You call it pushing through or becoming tougher. But I call it myself holding your soul. I do not run about performing grand displays to prove my power. I stay close to keep your heart from shattering further, even when no one sees. It is in those unobserved moments, when the world calls it you managing to endure, that I tell you this truth I do not prove, my love through great miracles, but through the quiet presence that keeps your soul from collapsing. You have grown accustomed to measuring everything by what your eyes can see. So when there are no visible wonders, you easily conclude that I am silent, distant, delayed. You do not realize that another kind of miracle is taking place, silent but relentless within depths you have never entered. Every time you sit alone in a quiet room, feeling as if your soul is falling apart, and yet somehow you can still stand up, wash your face, and go through another day that is not merely your willpower. That is me, supporting the part of you that no one sees. Every time you think, this time I will not get through it, yet the next morning you still have enough breath to call my name, even if only as a sigh. It means I was there through the night, holding the final threads of hope within you. I do not appear as lightning tearing open the sky, but I am the sky itself that keeps the storm from swallowing you whole. I do not always change the circumstances before your eyes, but I steadily change the endurance within you little by little. You do not see me move, but it is precisely because I am there that your soul has not fallen into the abyss it has approached many times. There are moments when you sit among a crowd, a smile still on your lips, words still flowing effortlessly, yet inside you there is a dark room no one knows. You think no one could ever reach that place, not even me, because you have sealed its door with disappointment, with wounds, with answers you believe will never come. And yet, within that locked room, there remains a very small silence you have never understood, the place where you do not completely collapse, where you still hold a faint thread of maybe there is still hope. It is there that I am sitting. I am present not as thunder smashing every wall, but as a gentle warmth that keeps your mind from breaking into pieces that could never be put back together. When you have no words left to pray, I still hear the soundless groans in your heart. When you no longer have the strength to believe, I do not condemn you. I wrap my arms around your exhausted faith and hold it in my hands until you can believe again. You think love must roar to be real, but my love chooses to remain beside you in the hours no one else wants to stay. You often think that if I truly loved you, I would extinguish every storm, close every door that wounds you, and clear every uneven path before you walk. But my child, the love I have for you is not a love that removes your ability to stand. It is a love that trains you to stand even while the wind has not yet ceased. Many times I have shielded you from things you never knew existed, but I have also allowed some winds to touch you, so you may learn to lean on me with your whole heart, not only with your understanding. I do not create suffering to teach you, but I enter suffering itself to change its meaning. When you think you are alone facing questions with no answers, I stand behind each one, turning them into small doors that lead you deeper into communion with me. My love is not a shield that blocks every blow, but a life force that keeps the seed capable of sprouting even after being buried beneath layers of hardened soil. I do not call you to be a soul that survives on sudden miracles, but a soul that trusts in my unending presence. Therefore, my child, when you do not see something spectacular, do not rush to conclude that nothing is happening. Look again at the days you thought were ordinary, the days you still got out of bed despite the heaviness in your chest, the days you still chose what was right, though no one acknowledged it, the days you kept back a wounding word even when you had every right to say it. Those are not merely you trying. They are me whispering in your soul, nudging your decisions gently toward the light. Recall the times when a dark thought nearly pulled you further, but somehow you paused, changed your mind, chose a different direction. That was my hand on your shoulder, not loud, not dramatic, but enough to redirect a single step, which you will see later has redirected an entire life. My love does not need a spotlight. It needs a heart willing to open, even just a narrow crack, so I can enter with the tenderness no one notices. And with each small opening, I am building a strength within you that even the greatest miracle cannot replace the strength of a soul who knows it is loved. Even without outward proof, there are things I have done for you that, if I listed them all, you would see your life has never had a single ordinary day the way you imagine. Every time your mind was drifting into darkness and suddenly a song, a verse, a gentle image passed through and pulled you back. You call it coincidence, but I call it a soft knock on your thoughts. Every time you wanted to send an angry message but deleted it, wanted to speak a cutting word but swallowed it. You call it self-control, but I call it me covering the wound before it bled further. Every time you were about to give up but somehow gained a little more endurance, you say, "I'll try one more time," while I know it was the moment I placed a drop of new strength into your soul. You have grown used to crediting all these subtle movements to your personality, your resilience, or good circumstances, and so you do not realize that there is a presence quietly adjusting the rhythms within you. I do not stand outside applauding every step you take. I stand within, keeping your step from slipping off the path you were created to walk. My child, I want to teach you a very gentle spiritual art, the art of recognizing my fingerprints in the smallest details. Instead of seeking only overwhelming signs, when you open your eyes in the morning and your heart still beats, your breath remains steady, your mind, though weary, can still discern right from wrong, beauty from corruption. That is already a quiet miracle. When in a conversation, you feel misunderstood, but somewhere in your heart a small voice whispers, "Slow down. Do not react yet. Soften just a little." That voice does not come to steal your voice, but to save you from a deeper fracture in the relationship. When you are tired and want to hide from everyone, yet find yourself cooking a little extra for someone, or sending someone words of comfort even while you are no better off, that is not you being good at endurance. That is me letting my love flow through your cracks. If you learn to pause for a moment, to name these moments, you will see I am nearer than you ever imagined, right in the midst of the things you call ordinary. Sometimes, in order to help you recognize where I am, I also allow you to see more clearly the places you once walked without me. You remember the seasons when you closed your heart, managed everything with your own strength, made plans by yourself, forced yourself to be strong, and everything fell apart in your hands. Not because I punished you, but because you were stepping outside the place where my love could keep your soul standing. When you pushed me out, every burden fell upon your shoulders, and you knew you could not bear it. It was then that a quiet comparison was carved into your memory. There were days you walked alone, and there were days when I walked with you. There were words you spoke on your own, and there were words you spoke knowing I was there. The difference is not in the noise of the outcome, but in the peace of the heart. When you begin to pay attention, you will notice that wherever peace is gentle, wherever hardship does not make you lose yourself, wherever pain does not destroy the kindness within you, there I am near. I know you often blame yourself for not feeling me, as though if you do not tremble, do not cry, do not feel goosebumps, then surely I must be far away. But, my child, emotion is only a ripple upon the surface of the water, while my love for you is the current beneath, running much deeper. There are days when your emotions dry up, when your prayers sound like hollow repetition, but it is precisely then that your choice becomes most visible. You still come back to me, even when you see nothing, hear nothing, and feel nothing special. I value those steps more than any dramatic moment, because there, you are not chasing a feeling, you are pursuing a relationship. There, you are not seeking a demonstration, you are seeking me. Do not underestimate your dry prayers. They are the thin threads that keep your soul from drifting away from shore. Do not dismiss the moments when you open the scriptures and only manage a few lines while your mind wanders. Those few lines, once used by me, can become a seed lying dormant for years before blooming on a day you do not expect. Gradually, as you learn to look at your life through this lens, you will see that two things are being transformed at the same time. The circumstances outside do not always change, but the way you stand within them has changed. I remain the one who keeps your soul standing, but you no longer stand unconsciously. You stand with the awareness that you are being held. That awareness does not make you proud, nor cause you to despise others. It makes you more humble, softer, and more grateful. You begin to realize that if you have not broken, it is not because you are strong, but because there is one who does not allow the burden to exceed the capacity of your soul. You stop asking, "Why is there no great miracle?" and instead whisper, "Thank you that I am still here, that my heart has not hardened, that I can still be moved by what is good." And when that gratitude becomes familiar, you will see this sentence become a living truth in you. Not just a beautiful idea. I do not prove love through great miracles, but through the silent presence that keeps your soul standing day after day. There was a long time when you thought that, in order to become worthy, you had to accomplish something big, loud, something that would make others look at you with admiration. You waited for a dramatic turning point so you could say, "Finally, I have changed. Finally, I am good enough. Finally, I am worthy of love." But, my child, while you were chasing those signs, I quietly rebuilt the foundation of your worth using a completely different material, love that requires no evidence. When a child cannot speak a word yet, cannot accomplish anything, it is still loved, not because of what it does, but because of who it is. I loved you before you could speak my name, before you could do what is right, before you knew how to choose your desires. I marked you with my imprint through a support that never ceased. And that support, not the applause of the world, is the only proof you need of your worth. Everything you think you must do to be recognized is an echo of old fear, while your true value stands beside you, waiting for the day you learn to turn your head and see it. Do not think that I wait for you to become perfect before I come. On the contrary, I often come closest in the moments you feel most ashamed, when you make mistakes, when you exhaust yourself with self-blame, when you fear others knowing, fear me knowing, fear judgment, fear contempt. But, my beloved child, it is precisely in those moments that I do not turn away. I open my heart, not to excuse the mistake, but to bandage the soul that has been distorted by the wound. You have never realized this: shame is not the root of change. but the sign that your soul is searching for a place to be accepted. You do not change because you fear I will abandon you. You are transformed when you understand that I stay with you, even when you do not yet know how to walk correctly. That silent presence does not remove consequences, but it keeps your identity from being crushed by failure. I let you face the truth, but I cover it with a gentleness sufficient to keep you from shattering. This teaches you that value cannot be stolen by wrong decisions. It can only be hidden beneath forgetfulness of the love I have for you. I have seen you many times try to perform a stronger version of yourself than you truly are, smiling when you are hurting, staying silent when you deserve to be heard, enduring when you need support. You think that only then will you be worthy, that only then will you not bother others, that only then will you not be weak. But, my child, that is not strength. It is your soul wearing armor that does not fit. It is heavy, rusted, wounding the skin, and making you forget who you already are. I do not call you to become a conqueror. I call you to maturity. Maturity is not hiding the cracks within you, but allowing me to place light inside those cracks until they become the very places warmth flows through. You do not need to prove yourself to me. You are not a rough draft awaiting correction. You are a masterpiece in growth. Every fragile spot, every sensitive space, every deep trembling within you is not an obstacle, but a window through which I enter your soul. As you begin to understand this, the questions about your worth start to change shape. Instead of asking, "Am I worthy of being loved by you?" you will ask, "What are you teaching me through the fact that I am loved even when I do not yet understand myself?" I do not love you as a reward. I love you as a beginning. You do not need to wait until you become someone for me to choose you. It is because I have chosen you that you have the ability to become. My love is not the destination you must conquer. It is the platform from which you rise out of brokenness. Each time you fall, that love will not rush in to fix everything, but it will place an invisible hand beneath your back so the fall does not crush the spine of your spirit. And when you rise again, no longer feeling the need to perform in order to be loved, you will understand this truth. I do not prove love through great miracles, but through the fact that I do not leave you in each step you learn to stand. And then, when identity begins to change, what you offer to the world begins to change as well. You no longer come to others seeking from them a sense of being good enough. You come to them to share the gentleness you have learned from me. You do not try to become a blazing light that tears through the darkness. You quietly become a small lamp, enough to illuminate a short stretch of the road. The world may not praise that, but your soul knows it is true. You begin to realize that strength does not lie in what resonates in the moment others are watching, but in what still stands when every spotlight has gone out. And it is there that you touch the purpose I have placed within you. You become the silent testimony of my love, not through triumphant display, but through the endurance of a heart that has learned how to remain with me. There is something I want you to learn before stepping further. Trust does not grow from resounding promises, but from your soul recognizing who is present in every rhythm of your life. You have grown accustomed to believing in what you can see, seeking certainty through external proof, longing for a clear sign to lean on. But my child, external signs can only lift you for a moment. True trust must sprout from within, from the place where you know I am present even when nothing seems to change. I do not lead you by turmoil. I lead you by the steady breath of love, like a thin breeze touching the surface of the water without raising waves. I place my invisible hand upon your mind to keep it from shattering when thoughts run wild like beasts. You do not see me blocking every assault within you, but many times you have felt yourself get through things that should have broken you. There, trust begins not because you know the answer, but because you know there is one who did not let you fall. Trust is not a mental state created by effort. It is the result of you recognizing what I have done for you when you were unaware. You remember the nights you could not sleep, lying there with eyes open to the ceiling, every thought an arrow aimed at your weaknesses, and you thought you would go insane. Then at some moment, without knowing when, your breathing slowed, your eyes closed, your mind loosened, and the next morning you were still here. Not because the problem disappeared, but because I held together every fragment of your mind in that darkness. You did not know I was doing this, so you assumed you pushed through or endured well. But when you begin to call that help by its true name, trust immediately deepens. Trust kindles like a flame in a dark room. It is not loud, not dazzling, yet enough to keep you from groping in fear. And I will continue adding wood to that flame through small experiences, a gentle conversation, a soft reminder, a peace that arrives without any particular reason. You think it is luck, but it is my reply to you in the way I choose, not through grand miracles, but through small signs only a listening heart can perceive. My beloved child, I do not build trust with speed, but with rhythm. There are seasons when you want everything to change quickly. You want the heavens to open, the path to be clear, my voice to sound like thunder. But spiritual maturity is not like a storm. It is more like a sunrise. No one knows the exact moment the sun appears. They only know the darkness is retreating from the horizon. I lead you into seasons without noise, where each day looks like the one before, so you may learn that stability does not come from dramatic upheaval, but from steps repeated in trust. I do not pull you upward by a strong wind. I place a gentle hand on your back every morning, just enough for you to take one more step. That is how I prepare your soul, not with shocks that widen your eyes, but with endurance that teaches you how to breathe in the trial. And when you have learned to breathe within the trial, you will no longer need miracles to believe me. The very fact of enduring each day will become undeniable evidence. True trust begins when you no longer see me as the final option for problems you cannot solve, but as the underlying rhythm of your life. You do not need to extinguish every anxiety to trust me. You only need to know you are not fighting alone. I do not require you to silence every noise in your mind. I require you to allow me to enter among them, where you think you must be strong. I teach you how to soften, where you think you must know every answer. I place before you one whisper: remain in me. And when you choose to remain in me, not through burning emotion, but through a simple decision, the decision to return even when nothing special has happened, the signs of transformation begin. You realize you no longer need proof, no longer seek outside guarantees, no longer compare your journey to others. Trust is no longer the result of convenience. It becomes the ordinary breath of the soul. Like one who knows the path will walk at night by light from the ground. You will learn to move without tearing open the sky. In the end, this trust does not make you irrational or delusional. On the contrary, it makes you more grounded than ever. You know there will be trials. There will be quiet stretches. There will be doors that close. There will be questions left unanswered. But instead of panicking when those things come, you will pause for a moment. Remember every time I held you from collapsing, and whisper, you are still here. That trust is not complacency. It is the deep awareness that I have proven my love in my own way. I do not need to break the laws of nature to tell you that I love you. I only need to keep your soul from dissolving. Day after day, when you recognize this, fear is no longer your master, and even the unclear road before you becomes walkable. That is the moment I look at your soul and know it has matured one more stride. It no longer merely senses me, it begins to trust me. There are times when you think surrender means giving up, capitulating to circumstances, laying down your hands because you have no strength left to fight. But my child, surrender is not yielding to the world. Surrender is opening the door, so I may step into the areas you still try to control by your own strength. I do not invite you to become passive. I invite you into a spiritual plane where you no longer have to maneuver to hold everything upright. You have clung to responsibilities that did not belong to you, tried to preserve every relationship, every opportunity, every beat of life to prove that you were strong enough, good enough, worthy enough. Each time something slipped from your hands, your soul hurt not only from the loss, but from the thought, if I had pushed a little harder, it wouldn't have broken. But surrender does not say, "You failed." Surrender whispers, "This was not yours to hold." You are not stepping back out of weakness. You are stepping into a new position where the weight no longer rests entirely on your shoulders. Surrender is maturity, not because you know less, but because you know more clearly the one who holds you. My beloved child, I know your soul trembles when it must release the things it is accustomed to gripping. You think that if you do not control them, disaster will strike. If you do not prepare for every scenario, life will betray you. If you do not watch every person, every emotion, every step, you will be wounded again as before. But you do not see that this clinging coils around your soul like a vine choking a tree. It does not protect, it suffocates. I do not come to rip from your hands the things you love. I come to free you from the burden of believing that everything depends on you. Surrender is not an act of irresponsibility. It is an act of understanding. You know your limits, and you know the place where I have none. When you lay a relationship into my hands, it is not because you want to abandon it, but because you understand my love is greater than your worry. When you lay a plan into my hands, it is not because you stop dreaming, but because you know I have paths far beyond your sight. Surrender does not erase action. It realigns the spiritual position from which that action flows. You still walk. You still work. You still think. But you no longer do it in restless exhaustion. You do it in peace. That peace does not come because everything is certain, but because you have begun to know, I am there. When you say to me, I do not understand the path, but I will walk under your guidance, your soul does not grow weaker. It is being placed in the very center of strength. For true strength does not come from knowing the whole future. It comes from knowing who goes before that future. And when you surrender, you do not lose control. You hand it over to the one who can hold even the parts you cannot see. I want you to understand this deeply. Surrender is the act of a spiritually mature heart. A child panics when it cannot see the light. A mature soul knows that even when it cannot see me, I am still holding it with a hand strong enough to lift, yet gentle enough not to crush. You do not need to prove to me that you are clever enough to manage on your own. I did not place you in this life so that you would handle everything alone, as if under some harsh examination. I placed you here so that you could learn to live in relationship, not a weak dependency, but a partnership between the one who leads and the soul that is led. If you keep clenching your fist around every decision, I cannot take you far, not because I lack power, but because I honor the freedom you have been given. You must be the one to open your hand first. I step into the space you yield. I do not step into the cages you lock from the inside. Surrender does not mean sitting still and waiting for me to do everything for you. It is like placing a seed into the ground. You do not lie down and wait. You still water. You still tend. But you stop trying to force it to bloom with your own hands. You do your part. Then you allow me to do mine, the part only I can do. Every time you try to tear at branches, force buds open, or shape the flower according to your design, you kill the very thing you hoped for. But when you allow me to bring the rain, the sun, and the time, the flower will open in such a way that you will understand. Surrender never deprives you. It spares you from unnecessary wounds. When you begin to live like that, your soul no longer falls into turmoil when things do not go your way, because it knows that my will never ruins you. Only your stubbornness does that. One day, after you have let go of what your hands can no longer hold, you will suddenly hear within yourself a kind of stillness you have never known before. It is not the stillness of burnout, not the stillness of collapse, but a stillness with foundation, with warmth, with a heartbeat. That is when your soul enters rest, not rest because everything is fixed, but because you have stopped trying to fix everything by yourself. You no longer strain to predict the future, no longer invent 1,000 worst-case scenarios in order to defend yourself, like a cool breeze passing over dry ground. Rest does not erase the desert in a single night, but it changes the climate of your inner life. You begin to breathe at a normal rhythm instead of in the rhythm of panic. You begin to speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that not every misunderstanding must be explained. Not every door must be knocked on. Not every sound within needs a reply. Rest does not come from knowing all the answers. It comes from knowing that I am holding the questions you are not yet able to carry. My beloved child, many think rest is the prize at the end of the battle. But in the spiritual journey, rest is the starting point of maturity. As long as you treat rest as the pause between two storms, you will live in constant vigilance, always scanning for warning signs. But I do not invite you to live in a posture of readiness to react. I invite you to live in a posture of readiness to trust. Rest is not defense. It is the fruit of knowing you belong to me. When you sit in an empty room, with no one covering your back, no one cheering you on, no one confirming your worth, and yet you are still at peace, that is rest. When you hear a passing criticism or a heavy misunderstanding, and your heart neither flares up in protest nor shrivels in shame, that is rest. When you walk through a long day with no visible breakthrough, yet you no longer conclude, "You have abandoned me," that is rest. It is a quiet maturity the world does not see, but heaven sees clearly. Rest does not kill responsibility, it restores the center of responsibility. You still have to work, still have to choose, still have to love, still have to face those who do not understand you. But instead of doing all this under the strain of fear of being wrong, you act in the freedom of knowing that I do not define you by the outcome of each day. Once, you saw every mistake as a slash across your worth. Now you see it as a reminder that you are learning, growing, in need of further guidance. Once, you needed a victory to feel worthy. Now you feel worthy even when the victory has not yet come. A soul at rest does not wait for the storm to vanish before it can breathe. It learns to breathe in the midst of the waves because it knows there is one who rules the sea. I do not need to calm the waters at once in order to comfort you. I only need to sit with you in the boat. And that alone is enough to keep you from sinking. There are times when you feel your heart has no strength left to love one more person, to try one more time, to start over again. And you call that the limit of endurance. I see it differently. I call it the threshold of rest. For only when you have passed beyond the limits of self-reliance do you stop building a life out of fear and begin building it out of trust. Rest does not make you numb, it makes you gentle. It does not turn your back on the world, it teaches you how to stand within it. You no longer shut your heart out of fear of further pain, but you also no longer fling it open out of fear of missing a chance. You open it because you know I can soothe every wound, and I can close every door that does not belong to you. In that place, love is no longer a strategy of defense or attack. It becomes the natural state of a soul that has found its way back to rest. In the end, you will discover a truth: both light and deep rest is not when the storm ends, but when you stop living inside the storm. The storm may still pass through your life, but it only passes. It no longer forms the foundation of your soul. You stand in reality. You do your part, but your heart is no longer built on lack, fear, or comparison. You walk in a new rhythm of life in which everything rests upon a simple yet powerful question: am I in you? And if the answer is yes, then whether today is calm or rough, bright or dark, my quiet presence is enough to keep you standing. You do not need to tear open the sky to prove it. Your heart already knows. When your soul has learned to rest in me, suddenly the upheavals you once saw as threats begin to take on a new meaning, not because they become pleasant, but because you no longer look at them through the lens of fear. In the past, whenever trials came, you ran to me like someone being chased, hoping I would extinguish the flames at once. But my child, a soul that has learned rest enters trial with a gentle calm. It no longer asks, "When will this end?" but, "What are you teaching me?" In that rhythm, trials cease to be evidence of abandonment. They become launching points for your spirit to recognize the strength embedded in the love I have sown. You do not need to know every answer beforehand in order to stand firm. The very act of walking forward without seeing the end of the road is already a powerful declaration of faith. I do not ask you to predict the future. I ask you to trust that I have already gone ahead of you into that future. And when you believe this, no storm will have the power to threaten who you are. My beloved child, I have seen how you used to tremble before delays. You believed that every postponement was rejection, that each closed door was a denial of your worth. You once cried over the things I did not allow to progress, and you argued with me in your heart. If I am ready, why not let it come? But my child, a soul that knows how to rest will gradually come to understand a different wisdom. I never delay to hurt you. I delay so that the things I give will not become a weight that crushes you. There are blessings which, if they come before their season, will only wound you. There are connections which, if they appear too early, will drain your soul. There are doors which, if opened before you can stand, will cause you to lose yourself. I love you enough not to give you gifts at the wrong time. And when you recognize the love hidden within delay, your heart will grow less angry, less confused. It will bow in peace, knowing that I am shielding you from things you cannot yet see. Some will ask why their lives advance faster, why they break through sooner, why they reach what you have prayed for. In the early days of your spiritual walk, you asked me the same, but when you rested in me, that question slowly dissolved, not because you no longer had dreams, but because you realized that life is not a race, and blessings are not prizes for the one who arrives first. Every soul walks to a different rhythm, carries a different assignment, and is refined at depths unseen by human eyes. Some are given a great door, yet their endurance is as thin as paper, and the slightest wind is enough to make them fall. Others are pressed in silence for many years, and those very years become deep roots, so that when they rise, even fierce winds cannot tear them away. I do not want you to be like them. I want you to be as I designed you. And when you stop comparing, I can begin teaching you how to live in the rhythm I have chosen for you. What once brought you disappointment, the mature soul will see differently. You will realize that not every loss is a thief. Some losses are teachers. Not every closing is punishment. Some closings are protection. I have blocked your path many times, not to halt you, but to keep you from rushing into sweet but destructive dead ends. I have taken you down empty roads, not because I lacked good things to give, but because I was shaping your inner life so you could hold those good things without breaking. You once thought I stood still when you were hurting, but now you begin to understand that I was standing exactly in that pain, ensuring it would not destroy your soul. I do not perform miracles to erase trials. I perform miracles to keep you intact within them. And one day, when you look back on the journey you have traveled, the questions that once kept you awake will become testimonies. You will see that what you thought was late was actually on time, What you thought was failure was actually direction. What you thought was silence was actually shelter. I will no longer need to speak through thunder for you to recognize me. A single gentle breeze will be enough for you to know I am walking with you. That is the sign of a soul that has matured. It no longer needs radiant proof to believe, because its very experience of walking with me has become its foundation. And when you stand upon that foundation, you will no longer ask me when what you desire will come. You will ask me, am I formed enough in your image to keep what you give? When that question takes root, I know you no longer live as a child seeking candy, but as an heir learning to receive their portion in peace. There are trials you once believed existed only to wear you down, like relentless waves beating upon a fragile shore. You asked me why I allowed such things, why some wounds stacked atop others, why those you trusted walked away precisely when you needed them most. But my child, a soul that has matured will gradually discover something. Trials do not come to strip you of value, but to reveal the value that has always been within you. Without fire, gold cannot show itself. Without night, dawn cannot be seen. Without silence, my voice cannot echo so deeply. In the past, every pain caused you to shrink back in fear, but now that rest has taken root in you, suffering becomes a different language through which I speak. I speak to you through absence, through the heavy steps you still dared to take, through the times you cried but did not break, through the seasons when you believed you were abandoned, but I was actually shaping your faith. My beloved child, I know old wounds still make you tremble. Each time you are hurt, memories rise like violent waves, dragging you back to where you once fell. You fear you will repeat your failures. Fear that if you open your heart, you will lose again. But I want you to understand, trials do not revisit old ruins to mock you. They return to see whether you are no longer the same. A soul still living from fear will flee every sign of pain. But a soul that knows how to rest will stand and ask, what do you want me to learn this time? You will discover that some wounds have already been named. Some memories have already been touched. Some fears have lost their power when my light shines upon them. Not because you have become stronger, but because you have stopped believing you must endure alone. In my hands, trials are not a sentence, they are a classroom. Pain, when you remain in me, is no longer a blade that tears. It becomes a plow. A blade knows only how to destroy, but a plow knows how to open the soil. The difference lies in its anchor point. When you are outside my arms, every impact becomes an injury. When you have learned to rest in me, those impacts become the furrows through which the seed may fall. The seeds I have placed in you: compassion, perseverance. Spiritual sensitivity will never germinate unless you pass through terrain that has been turned over. It is precisely where you hurt that the soil of your spirit is widened, aerated, moistened, so that in a season unseen by others, the green shoots will rise. The world sees pain as failure. I see pain as beginning. The world sees tears as weakness. I see tears as streams washing the dust from the soul so it may see more clearly. When you learn to view trials through my eyes, you will no longer ask why, but will softly say, show me your purpose in this. There are seasons when I place you into delay not to make you suffer, but to help you discover your own depth. When everything comes easily, you only need a shallow kind of faith, the faith of someone who hopes for convenience. But when everything comes slowly, bit by bit, step by step, you are forced to dig a deeper well, a well of patience, a well of trust, a well of wakefulness. Extended delay makes you uncover things you never used to notice in yourself, old spiritual habits that no longer fit, thoughts you once believed were right that turn out to be nothing more than reflexes of fear, desires that seemed pure but secretly carried a hunger for recognition. I let you wait not because I want you to suffer, but because I want you to see your own soul clearly, to know what must be left behind before I give you what you ask for. When you mature in waiting, you learn how to receive blessing without losing yourself. Then the time comes, on a very ordinary morning, when you realize what the trial has done within you, not because your circumstances suddenly look beautiful, but because you no longer view life with the same old eyes. You become less noisy inside, less tormented by slow results, less panicked by every change. You begin to see me, not only in what goes smoothly, but in what seems to block your way. You see my love not only in answers, but in silence, not only in those who stay, but in those who leave, not only in promises fulfilled, but in promises still pending. You no longer ask me to take you out of the trial. You ask me to make you someone who can stand in the midst of it without feeling abandoned. That is the sign of a soul whose foundation has changed. It no longer lives to avoid pain, but to understand my purpose. There are moments when you stand in the middle of the trial and have no words left to pray. Your heart is exhausted. Your mind is tired. Your soul no longer knows where to look. You no longer ask, no longer accuse. You simply remain silent like a broken branch bent before the wind. That, my child, is where I begin to work. Not in the places where you still have energy to argue with me, not where you still feel confident enough to analyze right and wrong, but at the very edge of your endurance, where your voice has run out and only an inner emptiness remains. Many people think that emptiness is failure, collapse, proof that your faith is not strong enough. But I tell you that emptiness is fertile ground. Nature does not sow seed into soil that is packed hard. It sows into soil that has been turned. The moments when you fall apart are not the end. They are the stripping away, stripping you from the thoughts that once defined you, from the expectations you piled on yourself, from the pressure to become the resilient version the world demands. I am not plowing you to destroy you. I am plowing you open, my beloved child. You think you have grown weaker when you can no longer fight your pain, when all you can do is breathe in weariness, when you cannot explain why tears come at any moment. But weakness is not a sign that you are losing. It is evidence that you have stopped pretending. A soul that fakes its strength cannot be healed, because it will not allow me to touch it. But a soul that acknowledges its trembling is a soul that opens its door for me to enter. You do not need to bring me grand prayers for me to hear you. I do not need you to stand tall for me to see you. When you collapse, I do not stand far off. I bend down. I do not wait for you to regain your strength so you can rise alone. I pick up the fragments in your hands and remake what you thought was lost. You do not need to explain to me why you are exhausted. I have known it long before you dared to admit it. There will be people who look at your trial and call it a curse. They will say you are under misfortune, that you lack blessing, that you must have done something wrong and I am punishing you. They do not understand that I do not use a rod to train a soul. I use light. I do not throw stones to correct the heart. I use time. Those who only see the surface will not notice what I am doing in your depths. They see your silence and assume you have given up. I see your silence and know you are being formed. They see your tears and think you are weak. I see your tears and know you are brave enough not to hide the places that hurt. They see you pause and call it stagnation. I see you pause and know you are learning to stand in my presence instead of rushing into the world to seek instant escape. In trial, you do not need applause. You need to be seen with my eyes, eyes that do not measure you by speed. Do not compare you to others. Do not use ease as the standard of your worth. I know there are nights when you sleep without truly resting. Your soul keeps running down dark corridors, passing by memory after memory, mistake after mistake, question after question with no answer. You think I am silent. You think I am standing at a distance, watching you struggle, but I am right there in the space between your heartbeats. I am in every short breath when you cannot inhale deeply, for fear you might shatter. I do not stand outside the trial to see what you will do. I step into it with you. I do not wait for you to get through it so I can arrive with a reward. I give you endurance right in the eye of the storm. When you think you are the one holding the wheel, I am the hand that keeps it from veering off. When you think you are merely hanging on, I am lifting your soul through layers so deep that human eyes cannot see them. What the world calls enduring, I call transformation. What they call putting up with, I call being empowered. What they call emptied, I call open ground where I can plant new seed. And then one day, you will realize that the trial did not come to crush you, but to rescue you from versions of yourself you no longer need. You once believed you had to be strong to be loved, perfect to be kept, and striving to be worthy. But it is precisely when you are exhausted that those masks fall off, and you stand before me with no defense. In that moment you discover I have never loved the part of you that tries so hard to perform. I love the part you cannot disguise. I love your soul, not the image you built to survive. When you emerge from the trial, you do not become someone who won. You become someone who is real, and a real soul carries strength without needing to strain to prove it. It stands firm not because there is no wind, but because it has sunk its roots deep into my source. It chooses peace not because there is no storm, but because it knows the storm cannot touch the place I am holding. There comes a point in the spiritual journey when you no longer measure your strength by your ability to avoid being hurt, but by your ability to stand in the hurt without losing your peace. The world teaches you to dodge, to resist, to build walls for protection. But I teach you something else. Peace does not come from controlling circumstances. Peace comes from letting me hold your soul. You once believed that when I loved you, I would push back every wave, rescue you from every failure, and open every door. But my child, if I always stood between you and every trial, your soul would never learn to recognize me, even when the wind blows. I do not want you to be someone who praises me only when the sky is clear. I want you to be a soul who can discern me even when the storm roars. When the world looks at pain and calls it defeat, I look at your heart standing firm in my presence and call it victory. Not because you have overcome every hardship, but because you have stopped believing that hardship is the place where I am absent. My beloved child, my peace is not like the peace of the world. The peace of the world is a state. My peace is a foundation. A state shifts with circumstances, but a foundation holds even when the sky pours rain. That is why I keep leading you back inward to the place where you sense me in every breath, every silence, every heartbeat. When you are weary, I do not ask you to become stronger. I invite you to lean on me more. When you do not know where to go, I do not blame you for feeling lost. I place my hand beneath each of your steps so you do not slip. When you are disappointed because your prayers seem unanswered, I do not drag you out of the silence. I let you sit there. But I place my peace inside your chest, like a hidden flame that cannot be extinguished. My peace is not a sudden blaze meant to astonish the world. It is a lamp set in a room no one else sees, illuminating the corners you have been afraid to look at. There were times you thought I was present only when you could feel me, when your heart was moved, when your eyes were wet with tears in worship, when your life seemed to align with your prayers. That was when you believed I was near. But I ask you, what about the mornings when you wake up and feel nothing? The long nights when you pray with a dry heart, the days you walk like a weary traveler in a desert, still living, still remaining steadfast without seeing a single sign. It is precisely those moments that are the greatest proof you are walking in the peace I give. Because if peace were a feeling, you would have abandoned long ago. If peace were an outward sign, you would have collapsed when doors closed. But my peace is an invisible perseverance. It allows you to stand without knowing why you are still standing, to breathe when you are sure you have nothing left, to keep going when every reason to keep going seems to have disappeared. There are souls who think I love them less because I do not give them an immediate way out. But, my child, it is precisely when I do not rescue you with an external miracle that I am rescuing you from something far more dangerous, inner panic. You do not realize that what breaks you is not the trial itself, but the fear that I am not there. That is why I always begin from within. I hold your breath when you think you are suffocating. I hold your heart when you think it will shatter. I guard your mind from slipping into darkness. I keep your soul standing before I change the circumstances. I do not prove my love through thunder. I prove my love through silent presence, like an underground stream unseen, yet sustaining an entire forest. One day, you will look back and see that what kept you was not your own willpower, nor the strength you tried to paint for others to see, but the gentle presence I placed underneath every layer of exhaustion. You will see that I was there in places where you thought you were completely alone. I stood behind you when you were trembling. I sat beside you when you were silent. I walked with you on lonely roads, and you will understand that peace is not a reward for those who are strong enough. Peace is a gift for those who are honest enough to admit, I cannot stand on my own. Please, hold me up. When you say those words, you are not exposing weakness, you are acknowledging truth, and truth always sets you free. There are seasons when you look at your trials and call them obstacles, but I look at those very trials and call them the place where your soul will take root. The world teaches you that strength comes from getting through the storm as quickly as possible. But I want you to see a different truth. Roots do not grow when the sky is calm. Roots grow when the soil is broken, when darkness covers the ground, when eyes cannot see more than a few steps ahead. You do not realize that in the days you label as delay, your soul is actually sinking deeper roots into my presence. No one applauds the season when roots grow. People only notice when branches and leaves stretch upward. But, my child, every lasting life begins where human eyes cannot see. I leave some answers pending not because I want to exhaust you, but because I am building a foundation for you, a foundation that will hold you when blessing comes, so you will not be shaken by the applause of people. My beloved child, you think my presence must be a loud voice or a clear intervention, but I do not enter your soul like a crashing wave. I come like water seeping through dry ground. Water does not break the earth, water softens it. I do not force your soul to snap in order to change direction. I move through the cracks you do not notice. You assume I am silent when you hurt, but that silence is the very environment I use to refine your thoughts. Silence allows you to hear the real questions. Are you leaning on your achievements or on me? Are you seeking comfort from praise or from my unseen presence? Are you living to impress people or to guard the soul I have entrusted to you? I do not ask questions to judge you. I ask questions so you can find the way back. And every time you pause to listen, your roots grow a little deeper, not into fear, but into my word. When the roots have reached the water, the tree no longer trembles before the wind. People will ask why you are at peace while the trial has not yet ended, why you stand firm without any visible change, why you are not panicking as they once did. They do not know that what holds you is not the outer situation, but a truth that is sunk deep within. I am not alone. I do not come to you like a rescuer who appears only when the water reaches your neck. I come like a gentle breath, keeping you alive through each long night. You will realize that my quiet presence is the foundation teaching your soul to be at peace before seeing a miracle, to trust before seeing the path, to stand firm before being lifted up. At that point, faith is no longer a strain, it becomes a spiritual instinct. There will be times when I allow you to face a situation that once brought you to collapse, not to test the limits of your endurance, but so you can witness the change that has silently taken place within your soul. You will notice that it is the same pain, but this time you no longer want to run. You want to ask me what to do. It is the same silence, but this time you do not feel abandoned. You know I am preparing something in you. It is the same delay, but this time you are not rushed to force an ending. You sit with it like a student before a teacher. In that moment, I do not need to prove my love through outward wonders. I prove my love through the peace that has become habit in you, through a steadiness that does not fracture, through eyes that have learned to recognize me in the smallest of things. By then, my child, trials will no longer be enemies. They will become gateways. You will no longer look at the cracks in your life as curses, but as slits of light where I slip in. You will no longer demand that I rescue you instantly, because you will see that the deepest rescue is not the changing of circumstances but the transforming of the soul. Your roots will keep going deeper into my presence, and when blessing comes as I have promised, it will not overwhelm you, will not confuse you, will not pull you away from your source of peace. For blessing is given to those whose souls have learned to stand firm in my love, even while what their eyes see has not yet changed. This is how I teach you to grow, not by explosions, but by the quiet steadiness of love. There comes a point in the spiritual journey when you realize that steadiness no longer comes from how much longer you can endure, but from knowing where you are standing. Many souls stand in the midst of trials and still tremble because they are standing on the ground of emotions, outcomes, praise, and the opinions of others. But my child, when your roots have sunk deep into my presence, you no longer stand on that ground. You stand on me, and when I am your foundation, the wind cannot take anything from you. It only exposes what has been anchored. Light does not magnify you, it simply reveals which source you belong to. Trials do not kill you, they only uncover the life I placed in you from the beginning. What once frightened you, the silence, the delays, the uncertainty now becomes an invitation. Remain in me. When your soul recognizes that invitation, it no longer stands firm because everything is fine, but because I am its refuge. My beloved child, my quiet presence does more than keep you from falling. It leads you deeper into the true self I designed. You have grown used to living like someone who must prove they deserve to be loved, strong, kind, resilient, good at enduring. But when you rest in me, those behaviors cease to be strategies for acceptance and become the fruit of a soul that has been held. Your gentleness is no longer a way to make others feel you are safe, but the way I heal those who lack the courage to admit their wounds. Your patience is no longer silent resistance, but a lamp for those who panic and think, my faith has failed. Your endurance is no longer a performance of maturity, but the natural rhythm of a soul that knows I am always here. When you step into that state, you no longer need affirmation from people. My presence in you becomes the affirmation. Do not think my quiet presence is something vague. The seasons in which you feel you are just trying to get through the day are in fact the seasons in which I am preparing you. I do not require you to see the whole picture. I only ask you to believe that each small step rests in my hand. At times I do not bring outward change immediately, because I know what truly needs to shift is the vision within you. I do not want you to learn to trust me only when everything goes well. I want you to learn to recognize me in a gray morning, in a busy workday, in a night when you sink into silence without knowing how to name what you feel. When you see me in the small things, you will no longer be terrified by the big ones. When your heart has grown familiar with the underground streams of peace, it will not be swept away by the crashing waves outside. And then, you will be surprised to find that you no longer respond to life the way you once did. Criticism will no longer crush you. because you know you are not defined by human evaluations. Being misunderstood will no longer make you question your worth, because you know I have seen the hidden efforts no one else knows about. The success of others will no longer make you afraid that you are late, because you understand that your life and theirs do not share a timetable. When that happens, you are not trying to appear strong, you become strong, not because you are hardened, but because you are soft before me. A soft soul is a soul that cannot be broken. It can be bent, adjusted, healed, and therefore, it endures. My child, what I am doing in you is not teaching you how to avoid storms. I am teaching you to become someone who no longer needs to fear them. I am not training you to scream, "Save me," every time the wind rises. I am teaching you to turn inward to the place where I dwell, the place the wind cannot reach. When you have that capacity, you step into your purpose without display, without rising as a hero, without shouting to be heard. You simply walk one small step at a time, one simple decision at a time, one gentle response at a time to those who are lost. There, I use you not as a blinding light that makes others avert their eyes, but as a soft light that guides them toward a safe path. My quiet presence in you becomes a sign not for the crowds, but for the souls who are accustomed to walking in the dark. There are destinies that do not open with trumpets, do not begin with earthquakes, do not appear through a declaration that makes the world turn its head. Your destiny, my guarded soul, does not enter your life like a roaring fire, but like dawn slipping through a crack in the door, slow, gentle, steady, giving your eyes time to adjust before the sun stands high in the sky. Many believe they are only being led when miracles explode, when a door suddenly swings open, when a dream abruptly comes true. But I tell you, enduring destiny is not born in noisy moments. It is cultivated in seasons known only to you and me, like a seed resting in the soil, praised by no one, noticed by no eye, quietly exchanging life with the darkness, the moisture, and time. Your destiny grows in silence, waiting for the day it breaks through the surface. And when it breaks through, the world will think it has just begun, but I know it has been alive for a long time. My beloved child, I do not entrust destiny to souls still living in panic. I do not place a calling in hearts still searching for applause. I do not open doors for feet that only want to prove their worth. Destiny can only walk with those who have learned to remain with me, even when there is no sign to hold on to. You think I am preparing opportunities for you, but I am preparing you for those opportunities. You think I am delaying, but I am ensuring that when you touch what I have ordained, you will not treat it as a lifeline or a tool to secure your identity. You will see it as a path to express the love I bent down to sow in you. Your destiny is not born from superiority, not from outshining others. It is born from humility refined in silence, from a heart that has learned to be patient with me, even when everything else seems to recede. There is a great mistake many souls make. They assume destiny is a mountaintop waiting to be conquered. They think they must climb fast, reach far, and appear before the world as proof of their capability. But destiny is not a dazzling viewpoint where you stand to take pictures with the world. Destiny is a long road. I invite you to walk where every step has purpose, every stretch has a voice, and every time you are exhausted, my support is there. You were not created to dash to the summit. You were created to walk in my rhythm. The world pushes you to move quickly, but I teach you to walk steadily. The world urges you to erupt. I teach you to endure, for I know explosive peaks can dazzle your eyes, but only the quiet journeys will bind you to me forever. Destiny does not arrive when you say, "I am ready." Destiny arrives when your soul whispers, "Please lead me." Not in the confident declarations you practiced in front of a mirror, but in the sigh after a long season of suffering. in which you still did not turn your back on me. You think steadfastness must show itself in great acts, but I find it in the smallest places, in the moment you choose forgiveness instead of revenge, the moment you choose silence instead of argument, the moment you choose prayer instead of venting your anger, the moment you choose to take another step even when you see no light ahead. Those moments are the stones paving the way for your destiny. No one records them. No one applauds them. But I engrave your name on each one. And when the day comes that you walk on that road, the steadiness within your soul will not come from human recognition, but from this knowing every step here has already had me beside you. When I lead you into destiny, I do not push you into the public square to display the light. I place you in encounters that appear ordinary. You will not know why you happened to sit next to that person on that day, why a sentence you spoke sounded simple, why you were patient in a situation where you would once have walked away. Yet it is precisely these small things that form the intersection between your journey and me and the lives I want to touch through you. Destiny is not only who you become, destiny is also who is healed by passing through your life. You do not need to shine to be used. You only need to stand firm in the peace I have placed within you. I will do the rest, like water seeping into the ground, like light spreading through a window frame, like a seed breaking its shell, not with violence, but with the steady strength nourished from within. There are paths I open that carry no special marks, no radiant beam falling from above, no sudden wind changing direction, no confirmation from anyone. You enter them as if crossing an ordinary threshold in your daily life, thinking it is just another day like every other, but it is those very steps, small, quiet, simple, where destiny begins to unfold. I do not use lightning to announce your role. I use encounters that seem random, gentle conversations, small events that make you pause and reflect. A great destiny is not set upon your life with a crown. It is engraved upon your soul by the habit of walking in my presence, even when your eyes cannot see the destination. The world calls it coincidence. I call it preparation. Only those souls who no longer live in haste can recognize this. My beloved child, I do not create a masterpiece with a single stroke. I build it with countless fine lines, layer upon layer, shade blending with shade until the whole emerges, without a single stroke needing to boast of itself. Your destiny is the same. The small actions you deem meaningless, a kind word to a stranger, a moment of patience in silence, a choice to step past emotion, to preserve peace. These are the lights I weave into your life, like golden threads across a vast tapestry. People search for breakthrough moments to transform their lives. You assume you have done nothing because you have seen no explosive change. But I look at the things few pay attention to, because those are the stones of the road that only souls attentive to me will ever notice. Some souls rush forward to prove they have an arrival point, while you are taught to walk in rhythm. You do not need to know tomorrow, nor hold a perfect plan, nor predict every event before it comes. Destiny does not call to you with a shout. It speaks through a gentle inward pull, through the peace you feel when you choose the right thing, though no one sees, through patience that does not demand immediate fruit. When you walk this way, each small decision creates a resonance. I use that resonance to reach souls searching for shelter. You do not realize that the way you live is the strongest testimony, for people do not always remember your sermons, but they remember the peace in your eyes, the kindness without reason, the way you did not lose your calm in storms they thought strong enough to break you. Then comes a moment when those hidden currents begin to converge. You will look back and see that the encounters you thought unimportant have been arranging themselves into a vertical line in your story. The friend you comforted while you yourself were weary will return as a new door. The choice to remain calm on a pressured day will become the bridge to an opportunity you never considered. A single piece of advice spoken in a brief meeting will echo in the listener's mind and sprout after many years. I do not need you to calculate. I only need you to live with me. When you live this way, destiny does not arrive like a roaring advance, but like a quiet river carving depth in places unseen, then suddenly opening a passage where you thought only a wall existed. My child, here is a secret known only to souls who have learned to wait in me. Destiny is not a flash of brilliance, but an accumulation. The accumulation of faithfulness in small things, the accumulation of humility in difficult words, the accumulation of compassion when you could choose bitterness, the accumulation of trust when you could choose to give up. Each time you choose to walk with me rather than with pressure, each time you choose peace rather than reaction, each time you choose love rather than defense, an invisible thread is woven into your soul. And at a certain moment, it is not that you arrive, it is that the place opens before you because you have become someone who can enter it. Destiny is not activated by a shout, it is opened by the soul that has learned to walk in silence. There is a deep misunderstanding many souls still carry. They believe destiny is a stage for strength, a space to prove talent, a platform for their own light. But my child, destiny is not exhibition, it is the unveiling of what has been quietly formed. I do not lead you into destiny so you may prove something to the world. I lead you there so you may become a testimony of me. It is not explosion that forms destiny, but the steadiness of the soul when every eye has turned away. Destiny does not require you to be a hero. Destiny invites you to be faithful. Souls that wait for miracles to begin will never understand. But those who have walked through silence, who have taken trembling steps, who have been upheld by me, they will know destiny does not arrive like a storm, but like a calm tide pouring over a shore where the heart has ceased to thrash. My beloved child, you once believed I would entrust destiny to you when you became strong, when you were worthy, when you had outgrown every weakness. But destiny is not given to the self-reliant. Destiny is given to those who know how to rest in me. What I seek is not your strength, but your trust, not the talent you strive to accumulate, but the surrender in which you say, if you do not sustain me, I will fall. When you can speak these words not from fear, but from rest, that is when the door of destiny begins to shift. Those on the outside will think you are fortunate, that at last the opportunity has come. They do not know that opportunity is not the beginning, but the result of thousands of quiet steps sown into your life. I do not bless suddenly. I complete what I have long been nurturing. There are souls who step into destiny too early. They panic before the light. They grow weary beneath the weight of expectation. They try to maintain an image they do not yet have the depth to sustain. That is why I do not entrust destiny to you while you are still living by impulse. I wait until you know how to love the silence. I wait until you stop comparing your journey to that of others. I wait until you no longer cling to applause, no longer seek validation in results. When your heart can stand before me without demanding, when your hands can open to receive without trembling, when you are no longer afraid of losing, then you are ready to hold. Destiny does not demand speed. Destiny demands depth. Shallow souls will always demand flowers. Deep souls know that roots are the most precious part of life. Do you know this? My child, I do not need you to enter destiny in a sprint. I need you to walk as one who has become familiar with endurance. I do not need you to stand on a high platform, to speak grand words, or to become the center of attention. I need you to keep rhythm, take a small step when no one sees, keep peace when no one understands, sow kindness when no one thanks you, protect faith when there is no sign at all. These are not preparations before destiny, they are destiny. Because destiny is not an event, destiny is a flow. It is not one day when you are called, but the decade in which I have called you in silence. It is not a moment when you are used, but every season in which you are refined in hiddenness. When you can live like this, destiny ceases to be something I give and becomes the space into which you have already been woven. Then one day you will look back and realize the door of destiny does not open with thunder, but with a whisper so small, it is time. Not a whisper from the world, but from within you, where I already dwell. You will need no signal, you will know, not through excitement, but through peace, not through a clenched hand, but through an open one, not by thinking this is my opportunity, but by responding, lead me. And when you step in, you will not feel as though you are stepping out of darkness. You will know that the darkness was simply the soil that nourished your roots. You do not enter destiny as someone beginning a new life. You enter destiny as someone who has lived it for a long time, only the eyes of the world had not yet seen. There is a kind of chain not made of iron, one that makes no clattering sound, one unseen by the world, fear of failure carried by the soul like a second skin. It does not come from what has happened, but from what you imagine will happen. Before you walk any path, it is already there, waiting for your deep breath, whispering, what if you stumble? What if you are not enough? What if they look at you and turn away? That fear is what makes many souls draw back before accepting my call, not because they lack ability, but because they trust the judgment of the world more than my presence. But my child, when I lead you into destiny, I do not break the outer door first, I break the inner chain. I do not bring you to the place where the world is watching, I bring you to the place where you no longer tremble beneath its gaze. That freedom is not boldness, it is rest. Rest in knowing that your worth does not shift when you fall, does not disappear when you are silent, does not diminish when you walk slowly so I may lead. My beloved child, fear of failure only has power while you still believe you must hold your own future. Wherever you believe you are the builder, there you fear collapse. Wherever you believe you are the keeper, there you fear loss. Wherever you believe you are the one who determines the outcome, there you fear being wrong. But when you understand that destiny is not in your hands, but in mine, the fear of failure begins to melt like morning mist under the sun. You no longer fear mistakes, because you know I can adjust your steps. You no longer fear delay, because you know I do not measure you by speed. You no longer fear skeptical eyes, because you know I see deeper than any gaze. Spiritual freedom appears not when you win, but when you stop fighting yourself. You pause, inhale, and recognize that every step you have taken, crooked steps, detours, dark seasons, has never driven me away. On the contrary, they have only drawn me closer, like one who grasps your hand when you can no longer stand. You once thought I wanted you to become stronger, but I never invited you to become someone who does not tremble. I do not want you made of stone. I want you soft before me. Softness is not weakness, it is the humility that bows and speaks truth. I cannot do this on my own. The world calls that failure. I call it the beginning. A soul that relies on itself may succeed in the way the world understands, but it will always fear being exposed, fear losing its position, fear whispers, fear the day the miracles stop. A soul that relies on me may stumble 1,000 times, yet it will rise 1,001, because it does not rise by willpower, but by being lifted. This is true freedom, not never falling, but never being crushed forever. Not because you are indomitable, but because I hold your soul intact even when your body sinks in exhaustion. Look a little deeper. My child, many times what you call failure is simply an old garment torn away so your soul can breathe. Many times what you call loss is my hand pulling you away from a road that would drain you long before you became strong enough to keep the blessing. You think you have lost an opportunity, but in truth I have saved you from a burden. You think I took a person from your life, but in reality, I closed the door so you would stop sacrificing yourself for their approval. Fear of failure makes you see the world through the eyes of someone who is running. Freedom makes you see it through the eyes of someone who is being led. When your soul absorbs this trust, you will no longer ask, "What if I am wrong?" You will begin to ask, "What if you are teaching me?" The words change. The heart changes, and the whole life changes with it. There will come a day when you walk into a room, do something very ordinary, speak a simple word, and you will no longer feel as though you are colliding with the world. You will not scan their eyes. You will not measure their reactions. You will not search for whether you made an impression. You will simply stand, breathe, live, and in that moment, you will understand freedom is not victory. Freedom is no longer being haunted by failure. You once trembled because you had to maintain an image. Succeed on the first attempt. Please everyone. But one day, you will recognize that you do not need to be worthy for me to use you. You have always been chosen simply because you are mine. I use you not because you are flawless, but because you are soft before me. I do not ask you to make the world believe. I only ask you to believe me. There are failures you once thought were the final blow, proof that you were not enough, the end of a dream that once made your heart burn. You looked at them like cracks on the horizon, thinking you alone were the broken one, the loser, the one left behind. But my child, I do not regard failure as the world does. The world measures failure by outcomes. I measure failure by how you return afterward. Failure does not say that you are weak, it only says you have tried. Failure does not say that you are useless, it only says you are learning. Failure does not say that I have abandoned you, it says that I am inviting you deeper into the place I want to heal. Do not force yourself to understand every reason. Simply trust that I do not leave you alone in any fall you encounter. My beloved child, like a potter placing his hands upon soft clay, I do not shape only when the clay is perfect. I press, I turn, I gently squeeze the uneven parts. Sometimes I break a rotation in order to begin a new form, but I never discard the clay because it is misshapen. I only abandon it when it refuses my hand. Failure softens your soul, and it is that very softness that makes you capable of being reshaped by me. Your rigidity, your attempts to protect yourself from pain, your pride so high that you dare not stumble, these are what turn your soul to stone. I am not afraid of the times you break. I am afraid of the times you lock yourself away and refuse my touch. When you fail and still dare to return to me, it is not merely that you are stepping again, it is that I am doing something new within you. Some failures you mistake as verdicts, you chose wrong. But many times, failure is only an adjustment. You need a different perspective. I do not place you on a path so you can march straight to the destination. I place you on a journey so your soul learns how to walk with me. There are times I allow you to collide with the door you were so sure was the right door, not to humiliate you, but so you may understand not every path aligned with my will is free of obstacles, and not every obstacle is a sign I am absent. Failure is where I remove from your soul the deeply rooted assumptions formed by fear, the assumptions that make you think if you take one wrong step, your entire life will collapse. But I do not build your life with such fragile thread. I build it with deep anchors, anchors deeper than intellect, deeper than planning, deeper than reputation, anchored in my love for you. You once viewed failure as a test, but I see failure as an anointing. I do not ask you, why have you not succeeded, I ask. What have you learned, I do not ask. Why are you not as good as they are, I ask. Where have you listened to me? The world needs a reason to accept you. I only need a crack to step into your heart. You do not know that in the seasons you thought yourself defeated, I was protecting you from victories too early, victories that would make you arrogant. make you depend on recognition, make you forget the whisper that once guided you. You think failure is a demotion, but failure is a landing you fall into, my arms. So you remember that every takeoff must begin where my hand is beneath you. My child, when you understand that failure does not threaten identity, you will no longer fear stepping into where I call you. When you know I can restore you from any point, you will dare to try again. When you realize I do not trade you away because you stumble, you will dare to walk into the wide sky I have prepared. A free soul is not a soul that has never failed. It is a soul that has failed with me, has fallen in my hands, has risen by my lifting. And once you have learned this, you no longer dream of miracles to save you. You learn to trust in the presence that never leaves. This is the turning point when failure is no longer a sentence. It becomes a beginning. You are no longer a victim of life's experiments. You become a student of my love, one who walks forward, knowing that I am still waiting, still guiding, still holding you through every tender, trembling step. There will come a day, my child, when you realize that what I seek in you was never a flawless path without scars, but a heart that knows how to return after every tremble. You will understand that inner freedom is not found in avoiding mistakes, but in choosing to walk in my light even when you do not understand the full picture. A mature soul does not stop at the question, how do I avoid failure? It learns the deeper question, how do I remain with you when I fail? When that question reaches your heart, the miracle occurs. You no longer choke your soul to avoid falling. You open it, so I may catch you each time you stumble. You do not fear the first step. You do not fear the unseen road ahead. You do not fear uncertain turns, for you have seen that I am still there. Even when you slip off the path, my beloved child, when you know I still stand beside you after the 10th failure, the 50th, the 100th, your heart will slowly become lighter. You will no longer use the past as chains, but as a compass. Mistakes will no longer be evidence against you, but markers pointing to where I am bending your soul. You once feared the eyes of others when they saw you fail. Now you begin to fear something else, fear of missing the whisper I speak while you are hurting. Failure is no longer an event happening against you, but a means I use to carve back into you the identity the world has worn down. You learn to recognize disappointment draws you closer to me, more than rushed success ever did. Tears soften you more than praise. Loss teaches you how to bow your head when another soul needs a shoulder. Then, my child, there comes a stage when I teach you to walk without guarantees. You will look at a door that has never opened, and instead of asking, "What if I'm wrong?" you will ask, "What if you are calling?" You will attempt what you once dared not attempt, not because you are stronger, but because fear has lost its authority. When you walk this way, you do not gamble with honor or reputation. You simply place your step into the palm of my hand, and in that simple gesture, freedom blossoms. Freedom is not knowing for certain that everything will succeed. Freedom is knowing that even when you do not know the outcome, I remain unchanged. A free soul does not require certainty to walk toward the light. It walks because it knows I am there, even if the light has not yet reached your eyes. My child, what I want you to understand more deeply is this: I do not use failure to extinguish dreams. I use it to refine motives. When you still wanted success to prove your worth, every stumble was a blow. But when you desire success as a way to serve me, every stumble becomes a window. You begin to recognize the truths I have always wanted you to see: that kindness is not failure, that humility is not weakness, that quietness is not defeat. You learn to walk more gently, to release expectations that do not come from me, to judge yourself less by the standards of the world. You no longer seek to get everything right. You learn to be faithful in the smallest steps, and that faithfulness, not perfection, becomes the foundation I can build upon. Then a time will come when you will no longer look back on your mistakes with bitterness, but with gratitude. You will see that without those fractured roads, you would never have learned how to live close to me. You will know that it was never that I arrived at the last moment. I was there from the beginning. It was simply that your soul was not quiet enough to notice. When you enter true freedom, you no longer need memories of success to sustain you. You are sustained by my presence. You no longer need approval to continue. You are held by my steadfastness. You no longer need to protect your image. You rest in knowing that I have never taken my eyes off you. And you will see that such freedom is not a prize for those who never stumble, but a gift for those who dare to trust me, even when their steps are trembling. There comes a point in the journey, my child, when the soul stops fearing failure and begins to truly live. Not to live in order to prove, but to live in order to reflect. What you once believed to be influence the applause, the praise, the visible milestones begins to dissolve like thin mist. You realize that such things do not make the soul grow, they only inflate the ego. True impact is not produced under spotlights, but cultivated in the shade. It does not come from climactic moments, but from quiet steps that have learned to move in rhythm with me. I do not ask you to shake the hearts of a crowd. I ask you to soften a single heart that has turned to ice. I do not ask you to break the chains of an entire land. I ask you to untie the cords around someone who is suffocating. Influence is not a matter of intensity. Influence is a matter of saturation. And saturation only happens when your soul is still enough for me to flow through. My beloved child, some try to leave their mark on the world with loud declarations. Yet they make the echo inside their own soul become hollow. The louder the announcement, the more the ego stands at the center, and the more I am pushed out of the picture. But when you live in the quiet presence of me with no proclamations, no branding, no need for role or spotlight, something silent begins to unfold. Others see me in you before they hear a single word from your mouth. They cannot explain why they feel peace when they are near you, why they feel safe sitting beside you, why a conversation with you can soothe a wound they are afraid to name. They assume it is personality, strength, or an innate gentleness. But I know it is me saturating you like oil seeping through fibers, softening even the driest corners of an exhausted soul. You do not need to speak about me to be my witness. Sometimes it is enough that you do not retaliate. When others are irritated, you remain at peace. When they attack with words, you do not respond with self-defense. When they expect you to stir drama, to command attention, you choose silence. I do not ask you to win debates. I invite you to become a safe space among storm-tossed souls. Your greatest influence will not come from long speeches, but from steady presence. You do not try to impress, yet you do not disappear when someone needs a place to lean. The world calls such steadiness weakness, passivity, lack of ambition, but I call it refined strength, a strength that no longer requires applause to be real. Then one day, those who once saw you as ordinary will begin to ask you questions no one else asks them. They will come to you not because you have sharp answers, but because you have peace. They will entrust you with questions they would not dare entrust to others, because their souls sense the gentleness that can lift them without judgment. You do not need to know every answer. You only need to keep them within the light I have placed in you. A gentle word, a way of listening with your whole self, a presence that does not flee when they crack these open, a space where I can work. You are only the window. I am the light. You are only the vessel. I am the water. Your influence is not measured by how much you speak, but by how much room I have to walk through your life. My child, it takes many years before you understand this secret. Your impact is not measured by what you do, but by what I do through you. The world calls it indirect influence, but I call it spiritual testimony. People see your consistency when no one is watching. They see how you do not lose faith when there is no guarantee. They see how you choose kindness while wounded. And they begin to discover there is a force that does not belong to you, holding you steady. When they ask about that force, you do not need to prove, nor argue. You simply point to me, not through rhetoric, not through threats, not through debate, but through the peace that has become the rhythm of your soul. And in that moment, your influence has reached its purest form. You become the pathway, not the destination. There are souls around you exhausted by noise. Though they do not know how to name that exhaustion, they carry conversations that have never been spoken, pressures no one sees, anxieties that appear only in darkness beyond other eyes. They believe that in order to be seen, they must shout, must fight, must claim a position among competing voices. But, my child, I do not heal through noise, I heal through peace. And so I place you among them not to argue, not to persuade, not to prove, but for you to become an interval of silence. When your presence does not perform, when your heart does not armor itself with pride, when your eyes do not view others as threats, their souls will sense something they cannot name, a serenity not born from the world, but from me, my beloved child. Peace needs no explanation. It does not come to those who scramble and contend. It comes to the soul that places itself in my hands. When you are not dragged into their disputes, when you do not react to provocation, when you do not need to assert yourself in battles of ego, you have already become shelter for hearts that have no place to rest. We often believe influence means doing something for someone, but the deepest influence happens when you stand beside someone in the way I stand beside you. The world is accustomed to loud power. I invest in permeating power. A forest does not bloom because thunder roars, but because the rain falls drop by drop into its roots. You do not need weapons. You need steadiness. A forest is not created by a burst of flame, but by the persistence that keeps it alive. Let me give you an image. There are those who desperately seek fire to warm their souls, turning everything upside down for a single blaze. But then they step into a room where you are, saying nothing, trying to impress no one, simply calm, not rigid, gentle, not weak. And suddenly, they find they can breathe. They do not know why. Not because you burn brighter than they do, but because you do not try to burn them. Peace spreads in a cold room like warmth. Some call it good energy, maturity, a pleasant personality. I call it my imprint upon you. Then there are those who come to you in chaos. They speak hastily, afraid of judgment, desperate for someone to understand them immediately. If you respond with haste, they collapse. If you respond with arrogance, they shut down. If you respond with sharp advice lacking gentleness, they will feel smaller than before. But when you sit with them, listen without rushing, hold their gaze without dissecting them, ask questions from care rather than from agenda. You open a door. Many souls have never passed through the door that allows them to be seen, not as a problem, but as a human being. And in that simple moment, I am at work. You do not know it, but I know the words you do not speak can become a blessing stronger than every attempt at preaching. My child, what I want you to understand is this: influence is not something you create. Influence is something I pour through you. You cannot make yourself become gentle water. You can only allow me to turn you into a calm current. You cannot teach others to find peace. You can only dwell in the peace I give you, so that they may recognize for themselves that the place where your soul stands is the very place they long to reach. You do not need methods. You need room. Room for me to flow through you, for my breath to become oxygen, for my silence to move through your life. The way wind moves through a valley, no one sees it, but everyone feels it. There are places in your life where I never asked you to speak. I did not send you there to teach, to prove your wisdom, or to illuminate what others do not yet understand. I led you into landscapes deprived of peace, simply so you could be there. Like a lamp placed upon a stand, not so bright that it blinds, but warm enough that souls accustomed to darkness recognize they no longer need to tremble. My beloved child, let me make this clear. There are miracles that make no sound. They do not appear like lightning. They come like a faint breeze touching dry earth, causing the dust to gather into seeds. These miracles are the steady presence I place within you, not so that you may become glorious, but so that the souls around you may know they have not been abandoned. Yes, you heard me correctly. For there are people who cannot endure light that is too sharp. They can only bear the light filtered through a soul that has learned to be still. I placed you among them, not because you are stronger, but because you have learned how to stand in me without making noise. When they see that you do not react to storms the way they have seen others do, when they notice that you do not struggle to be right, when they see that your calm does not come from advantage or position, then it is not you who is preaching. I am breaking soil in their hearts. They may not know how to name it. Some call it composure. Some call it endurance. Some think you are simply carefree. But I know, and you know it is, my heartbeat flowing through you low, slow, in a way darkness cannot imitate. My child, do not underestimate silence. The right silence can become a place of rest that 1,000 shouts will never create. There are souls around you who do not need a lesson. They need a shoulder without judgment. They do not need fiery encouragement. They need a presence that will not abandon them. Remember, I did not come to you with thunder when you were about to break. I came as warmth that kept you from melting. And when you bring that warmth to them, you show them something they themselves never believed. That strength is not force. It is the ability to stand firm without pushing anyone down. You may say nothing, but your heart is at work, and I am there with you. Look back at the days when others opened their hearts to you. They did not choose you because you had the perfect answer. They chose you because you did not make them feel small. Many times you thought I did nothing, but that is precisely the reason. You did not impose. You did not coerce. You did not demand, and thus their souls did not close. You opened a space where I could step in. I spoke to them through the silence you held, through the softness you did not lose, through the patience you did not abandon. Some things are never transmitted through sermons, they are transmitted through breathing. And when you abide in me, your breath begins to match mine. Do not rush to look for proof of change. The tree does not see its own roots burrowing deeper, but it knows it stands firmer after each season of wind. My beloved child, so do you. You do not know who was saved from collapse simply by sitting beside you in silence. You do not know how many hearts turned around simply because they saw a person who refused to be swept away by the world. You do not know how many souls found the courage to return because they realized there was someone who could belong to me without displaying faith like a billboard. I use you as I use dew on the land, gentle, unheard, yet waking the young grass after a long night. My child, here is the secret of quiet presence. You do not need to create impact. You only need to become a place where I may have impact. When you stop trying to leave an impression, I can leave an impression through you. When you stop seeking attention, I can shine where you stand. When you cease competing for a place, I can make your presence a shelter for souls too weary to keep fighting. The peace I plant in you is not for you to hold. It is a stream. You only need to open the channel, and I will pass through. There are souls who believe faith exists only in explosive moments when miracles happen, when signs appear, when spiritual experiences strike like thunder. But my beloved child, if the life of the soul rests only on earthquakes, then it will always wait for the sky to tremble before believing I am at work. I do not build you like that. I lead your soul into a steady rhythm like a stream that does not hurry, like a heartbeat that does not perform, like light that arrives each morning on time without a single explosion. I want you to understand this truth. True strength is not born in a single glorious day, but formed in thousands of ordinary days in which you did not give up. You do not realize it, but those days that seem like nothing are the very ones preparing your soul to receive greater things. My child, steadfast spiritual rhythm is not meaningless repetition. It is the cadence I use to pull your soul away from the impulsiveness of emotion. When you wake without motivation but still choose to pray, when you are weary but still choose silence over resentment, when you see no results but still choose what is right, these actions are not small. They are the foundational stones of your destiny. You cannot feel the change because you are standing inside it. An oak tree does not grow through 4 seasons of storms, but through hundreds of windless mornings. You see delay, I see rooting. You see monotony, I see foundation. You see stillness, I see preparation. I know the world has taught you to chase intensity. People cling to mountaintops because they fear that without them, they are not progressing. They pursue excitement like the thirsty search for water in a desert, forgetting that water lies beneath the ground, not in the sandstorm. I do not want you to become addicted to miracles. I want you to become a soul that trusts me, even without miracles. When you live in that steady rhythm, you no longer depend on external validation. You walk because you trust me, not because you feel me. That is when your heart begins to align with my will, not chasing after me, but walking with me. There is one secret I want you to learn. Most spiritual progress happens where you are not paying attention. When you choose forgiveness without anyone knowing, when you choose not to retaliate against slander, when you choose to keep your promise to yourself in quiet, that is when the inner fibers of the soul are reinforced. The world sees only symbolic victories, but I see the hidden ones. Those hidden victories are the real ones, because they require no audience. You may think, then no one will ever see. But my child, I see. I see every time you choose to trust me over your fear. Every time you pause instead of rushing. Every time you accept becoming small to protect peace. None of it is wasted, because none of it happens outside of me. Understand this in the rhythm of steady living. You are transformed from within. There are no fireworks, no radiant beams, no grand finale for others to applaud. There are only small steps, choices that seem insignificant. Yet it is those very choices that make your soul resilient. When the storm rises, you do not tremble like a sapling. You stand like a trunk that has absorbed water year after year. No one sees that journey, but you do not need them to see it. I have seen it. I was there in every morning when you believed yourself weak but still got up. In every evening when you were exhausted but still chose gentleness. All of these are the evidence of maturity, not for the crowd, but for you and me. There are seasons when the winds rage so fiercely that you think you are about to break, not because you lack faith, but because everything you once believed seems to be resisting you. My beloved child, look deeply into what I am teaching. Inner stability does not mean the absence of turbulence. It is when I become the anchor in the midst of the sea. You are not called to avoid the storm. You are called to learn how to stand in me without being dragged away. The world will tell you stability is when everything outside you is under control. But in me, stability is when your heart no longer depends on external fluctuations to determine your internal peace. When you center yourself in me, fear ceases to be your measure. Wounds cease to be your identity, and emotions cease to govern your soul. There are days when your prayers do not rise like songs, but fall like broken whispers. There are nights when you do not have the strength to say, "Help me," and you can only exhale your exhaustion. I have heard even those breaths. Stability is not born out of bold prayers, delivered with confident strength, but out of those moments when you are so frail that all you can do is place yourself in my hands without demanding to understand. From such moments, the very structure of your soul begins to change. It stops seeing me as an emergency remedy and begins to see me as the atmosphere in which it lives. And when that happens, storms no longer destroy your inner being. They simply expose roots that have already sunk deeper than you ever realized. My child, you often ask, why do I still feel unsettled? Because you are learning something. Most souls never have the patience to learn. Peace does not come from avoiding pain, but from knowing who holds you in the midst of it. Just as a boat cannot choose its waves, but can choose its anchor, your soul cannot choose a life without turmoil, but it can choose to anchor itself in me. And when you place me at the center, not by mere words of declaration, but by steady surrender through every decision, you begin to notice something strange. What once terrified you now only slows you down so you may listen. What once disappointed you now simply causes you to press your hand to your chest so I may touch it. What once made you tremble now only reminds you that you already have a place to return to. I do not want you to become numb to the turbulence of life. I do not shape you into a cold stone, mute before pain. I shape you into a valley where wind may pass through, but cannot destroy the ground. Inner stability is when you no longer respond through instinctive self-defense, but through the peace I have sown. When others throw insults, you are not swept into hurt. You look at them knowing they are wrestling with a storm they themselves cannot see. When circumstances demand that you prove yourself, you do not tremble to defend your worth, but choose to walk in humility, because you know I am the one who proves you belong to me. That is stability, not because you are stronger, but because you are no longer led by the wave that has just risen. My beloved child, the strength of inner stability is rarely recognized while it is forming. It does not trumpet itself like the horns of victory. It is like roots sinking through layers of soil. It does not arrive in moments when you shine in front of others. It arrives in moments when you stand in the face of misunderstanding and still keep your heart soft. No one applauds those victories, yet they are the victories that safeguard your true self. The world praises assertiveness, but I honor the soul that knows when silence is necessary. The world praises outward force, but I empower the souls whose resilience is rooted within. When you live in such a way, you do not merely stand firm, you become safe ground on which other souls rediscover themselves. There are moments when you think you must react at once, as though slowing down is weakness, as though not responding means you will be dismissed, overlooked, or left behind. But my beloved child, the rhythm of response is not reacting by instinct. It is listening to me before you speak, before you move, before you decide. In me, you do not act because of pressure, you act because of guidance. And I do not always lead you through an unmistakable voice. Often I lead you through peace like a stream, moving quietly beneath the soil, softening the ground for roots to grow. The rhythm of response is the ability to recognize that flow, even if it is only a tiny movement in your soul, and choose to follow it. My child, reaction is the answer of fear, response is the answer of trust. When you react, you allow circumstances to dictate your mind. When you respond, you allow me to dictate your steps. Reaction outruns reflection, outruns observation, outruns prayer, and therefore rarely preserves peace. But response is born out of stillness before me. It is never frantic, never rushed, never explosive, never aimed at proving anything. Sometimes response is a gentle word. Sometimes response is sacred silence. Sometimes response is stepping forward. Sometimes it is stepping back. The rhythm of response is not a formula. It is a relationship, your soul learning to ask me here. Who do you want me to become, instead of asking, here, what must I do to win? The rhythm of response teaches you something deeper. Still, you are not required to save yourself from every situation. When you react out of fear of being misunderstood, you are building fences to protect your ego. When you respond from the wellspring of peace, you are allowing me to protect your identity. I do not want you to enter every argument, even when you know you are right. I do not want you to retaliate against every accusation, even when you could prevail. I do not want you to push through every door, even when you are capable of crossing it. I lead you only through the doors that are meant for you, because I know there are doors that open only to drain your strength, wear down your heart, and cause your soul to forget the core truth you are called to live in me, not to fight the entire world. My beloved child, remember that there are places where I position you not to change everyone, but to keep the rhythm of your own soul. When someone hurts you, reaction says, I must protect myself. But response says, I let you protect me, and I keep my heart tender. When someone pressures you to choose quickly, reaction says, I have to do something. But response says, I will listen to you first. When you feel pushed into a corner, reaction says, I cannot be weak. But response says, I am not alone. And right there, you begin to see the wonder. I turn every pressure into soil where your roots go deeper. I turn every attack into an opportunity for you to learn patience. I turn every dead end into a hidden step that lifts your soul higher. Some will look at the way you respond and think you are slow, indecisive, or too gentle. They do not know that you are listening to a different rhythm, a rhythm not of this world. They do not see how many words you hold back. They do not see how many times you choose silence. They do not see how many opportunities you release just to guard your peace. But I see it all. I see every time you keep yourself out of battles that were never yours. I see every time you choose gentleness over winning. I see every time you resist the impulsiveness of your emotions to hold on to one small leading from me. No one records those moments, but I record them all, because they are not just actions, they are evidence of a soul that has learned to walk with me. Know this when you live in the rhythm of response. It is not only your heart that finds peace, the space around you is transformed as well. Those near you sense that they do not need to be on guard. Conversations soften. Relationships are no longer ruled by ego. You do not bring a strong presence into the room. You bring my listening, my gentleness, my clarity. And through that, you open doors that arguments and pressure could never unlock. Here, quiet influence becomes the greatest miracle of all. No one notices when it begins. But one day they realize they are no longer the same, not because you changed them, but because I passed through you. My beloved child, if you have come this far, it means your soul has listened to me, not only with understanding, but with deep longing. You have walked through pages full of silence, paragraphs full of perseverance, words I whispered into spaces only willing souls could perceive. Let me say this to close, not as a full stop, but as an open door. I do not prove my love through great miracles, but through the quiet presence that keeps your soul standing. If you only seek me in lightning, you will miss me in the gentle breeze. If you only wait for me in victories, you will not recognize me in days that seem ordinary. But when you learn to look into the small moments, you will see I have been there all along, in every breath, every time you rose again, every time you held on when no one knew. My child, spiritual maturity does not reveal itself in the shouts of victory, but in your ability to walk softly even when no one sees the path. You think I work only in dramatic movements, but I work most deeply where your soul believes, without needing full proof. When you stand alone in silence, and choose to trust me. That is when heaven trembles. When you keep your heart soft, even after life has tried to harden it. That is when I call you by name. When you keep walking, though you do not know where the next step will land. That is when destiny begins to open. You always ask me, when? But the more important question is, am I ready for you to work in the hidden places? For the love I have for you does not come like a storm, it comes like mist. It does not break, it heals. It does not force, it invites. I do not come to snap you in half, I come to lift you little by little, until you learn to stand, not because you are strong, but because you know how to lean on me. And when you realize this, waiting ceases to be punishment and becomes grace. Slow steps are no longer failure, but preparation. Closed doors are no longer rejection, but protection. Everything you live through carries my fingerprints even when you cannot see them. My beloved child, remember this. I do not entrust blessings to you when you have outshone others. I entrust them when you have learned to listen. I do not look for dazzling souls. I look for souls that know how to return. I do not choose you because you are stronger than others. I choose you because you allow me to draw near. And when you allow me near, I turn wounds into sources of light, fragments into foundations, and your past into wings. You no longer need to step out to prove your worth to the world. You only need to step deeper into me, and the world will see me in you. If you forget everything else, remember just this one thing: I never leave you, not in the night, not in the days you collapse, not in the times you feel lost. I am the warmth that keeps your soul from shattering. I am the silence that shelters the seed you carry. I am the breath that has never left you, even when you are too tired to pray. You have not walked alone, and you will never have to walk alone. Keep going. My child, I am waiting for you ahead. In the very life I wrote for you, long before you knew how to call my name. Now pray like this: Lord, please teach me to recognize your quiet presence in every beat of life, so I no longer demand great miracles before I believe that you are near. Open my eyes to see you in the ordinary steps of each day, in moments of weakness, in every breath that still remains, so I may understand that I do not survive by my own strength, but by your hidden love. Lord, help me to rightly name the small graces I have long called just pushing through. Keep me from seeing my perseverance as a personal achievement, and let me see it instead as your hand holding my soul back from breaking. Lead me out of the habit of calling everything coincidence, so I may bow in gratitude for every time I thought I was falling, yet still remain standing. Lord, heal me of the habit of demanding thunder in order to believe that you are speaking. Teach me to hear you in the light breeze, in gentle silence, in the small prompting that leads me away from the edge. Make my heart a place that listens to you in spirit rather than chasing emotional stimulation. Lord, set me free from the burden of trying to prove that I am strong enough, good enough, or worthy enough to be loved by you. Teach me to stand in the love that already is, instead of running after praise or human approval. Place me in the posture of a child receiving, not a slave striving to be accepted. Lord, teach me to surrender, not out of helplessness, but out of trust. Break the fear within me that if I do not control everything, everything will fall apart. Give me courage to open my hands, to place into yours what I cannot hold, and enough humility to understand that safety does not come from effort, but from your guidance. Lord, calm my soul whenever I want to cling tightly to the things that are leaving. Help me know that you never take anything from me unless its presence would harm the destiny you have prepared. Help me believe that when you close a door, it is not punishment, but mercy. Lord, teach me to find rest not only when every storm has passed, but in the very midst of waves that have not yet settled. Teach me not to live in fear of loss, not to build life on constant alert, but to stand in peace, knowing that you are holding my soul day by day. Lord, make my heart gentler when I face trials. Protect me from bitterness and hardness when I am misunderstood, when I am abandoned, when no one knows how hard I have tried. Grant me tenderness not because I am strong, but because you dwell within me. Lord, forgive the times I mistook silence for absence. Forgive the times I ran away because I could not feel anything special. Adjust my spiritual eyes so I may know that silence is not abandonment, but the blanket you lay over the seed that needs darkness in order to grow. Lord, free me from the habit of building the future out of anxiety. Help me understand that the future is not constructed by calculation, but by your preparation. Teach me to walk step by step in the light you place beneath my feet, instead of trying to see the entire path at once. Lord, give me this truth as naturally as breathing. I do not need miracles in order to feel loved. Engrave deeply into my soul that I have already been loved in the very moments I am most weak. Do not let me trade away the peace within just because I cannot yet see results on the outside. Lord, teach me to live as a soul already held, not a soul still waiting to be rescued. Teach me to see myself through your eyes, not through failure, not through delay, not through the judgment of others, but through the quiet presence that has lifted me to stand every time I thought I could not rise again.